We want to bring up Captain Memphis Williams now, who is who also came down with the coronavirus affliction about the same time as Elder Smith came down with that virus, and he too, I think, lost his sense of taste and smell. So, do we have the Captain Williams on the line with us at present? Captain, are you there?
Good morning. Yes, I am.
Yeah, all
Peace
right.
and good morning.
All right, good morning. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing all right. Much better now.
Are you still lingering from the effects of the coronavirus, or are you completely, healed and back up and about?
Well, thankfully, I am healed and back up and about, currently working from home as well.
Okay, so you're privileged to be able to do that. Could you tell us a little bit about? I mean, how long were you under the affliction of this, and what did it feel like? I know you reported in several times to me that you couldn't taste or couldn't smell. Walk us through what that was like, Captain, from day one until where we are.
Absolutely. So, interesting enough, it started back in March, earlier this March. Funny, because of the nature where I worked, I was actually going to attend a major conference out in Texas, but I was always keeping, informed. I was keeping myself informed by looking at all of the news reports and things like that. And this virus was just spreading at an alarming rate. So I just raised my hand at my job and told them, like, hey, guys, I think this thing is going to be really serious, and that I'm going to back out of going to the conference. And they all kind of was like, well, we understand, and things like that. And then before you know it, it just hit like a bomb. So by then I was already, I stopped going to work because I have to travel and transportation, and I was just getting concerned. So I had opted out of going to work, and I continued to work from home. But then what happened was my wife, she attended college here in New York. And so she had received a phone call from her dean informing her that she was around someone who had tested positive. So by then, she was already at home with me, because this is when they had enacted the stay-at-home quarantine. Right. And so when she received the call, I knew then something was wrong, and I was like, oh man, she was definitely exposed. And then literally like 1 or 2 days after that call, she came down with it. And so she was sick, bedridden, and that time I was helping to take care of her. And so I would say roughly about a day or so after she was bedridden, I started feeling the symptoms. Like it almost felt like when you get the flu, where you sort of feel like a flu coming on, you kind of get the, sore throat and aching body and pains. And so I said to myself, like, yeah, this is a corona, because then that like following day, it hit me hard. And, my body was aching, my joints were hurting.
You're saying that your wife went down before you went down, even though you realized this conference in Texas could be, dangerous. But she went down
absolutely.
before you went.
Yeah, and that was a funny thing, is because I did everything in my power to avoid going to the conference to get the virus, and then I ended up contracting it from her. And so during that period, it just felt like the flu times 10, like all the pains and the aches and symptoms that come with the flu. Just like imagine that, multiplied by 10. And I knew for me, because it was still kind of doubt, like, well, maybe it isn't the corona. But then I started feeling chest pains, and it felt like stabbing.
Did you have shortness of breath?
Pains.
Did you have shortness of breath as well?
I didn't have the shortness of breath, but I did have the symptom of the chest pains, and that's what I had read during my time when I was researching this stuff. I read that like chest pains was a symptom, and the thing with viruses is that not since everyone is different, not everyone would experience the same type of symptoms, and then also since this is a novel virus, meaning it's new. They don't know what the symptoms are. Like symptoms could start popping up in different people that aren't in others. But I knew when I started feeling those stabbing chest pains, that's when I really got concerned.
Well, what about your wife? What about your wife? Did she have chest pains? And then my next question is, the both of you are now bedridden, whooped by this virus, pain that
Hmm.
you probably never had before. And how did the two of y'all maneuver that? I mean, you were taking care of her when she first went down, you know.
Yeah, and then it was funny because we were, like you said, we were both laying up in here together, as thick as a dog, and we did our best to try to consume as much liquids as possible. And one of the things, because I work in the medical field, so I'm privy to a lot of information on like viruses and things like that. And one of the things I kept stressing was to just wrap ourselves up so we can raise our temperatures, because basically when you get a fever, that's your body fighting off
Right.
viral
Yes,
infections and things.
yes.
And so we just stuck to that and just consumed a lot of liquids, and with limited mobility, so try not to get up as much as possible. And when when any of us did have to get up to say use the bathroom, it was a very painful experience.
Let
And
me ask
so,
you this
but we.
question, and
Mhm.
if you're unable to respond, I understand. But I know you work in the medical profession, and you've been in this industry now for a goodly number of years, and you're not a side player in this. You're a major player in
Mhm.
global medicine. I understand
Mhm.
that. Is there something that's going on with all of these various testings and the hydroxychloroquine and
Mhm.
Rendivas and is there, and the CDC, is there something that maybe you could tell us that won't get you into any kind of,
Mhm.
problem, Captain?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And so the one thing I will say, and this is something that I believe is happening with the current situation, and it's information that obviously will never get out to the public. But before the onset of all of this COVID-19 pandemic, there was already an epidemic going on in hospitals, and you've probably heard of it. It's known as the superbugs. And
Yeah.
basically, what that is your typical viruses like pneumonia and things like that. In the hospital settings, those viruses are like super versions of the regular pneumonia, and the only reason they've gotten like that is because the very nature of hospitals, and that they have to sterilize the
Yes.
equipment
Yes.
and
Yes.
clean them. And so, what the side effect of that is that the virus is adapted to that sterilization, basically becoming stronger so they can repel that sterilization. So that's why when you hear things like people go in the hospital and they die of pneumonia, it's not the regular pneumonia you and I would catch when we're just normally outside. It's
Interesting.
a
Yeah.
super version
Interesting.
of
Yeah.
that. And so what I believe to be happening is that these people that are going into the hospital with COVID already have a weakened immune system. They're getting killed, struck by these superbugs that are already living and thriving there. And so, and they're catching these things from these ventilators and these other IVs and equipments that are being rotated around quickly. So you can imagine it's this pandemonium up in there. So the sterilization process is probably all crazy right now because people are dying so fast. And so basically going up into the hospital is just like
It's dangerous.
exacerbating your
It's
death. Yeah,
dangerous.
it's
I
very,
mean,
very dangerous, and that's one of the reasons why I didn't want to go to the hospital, because I was like, I'm better off here than if I were to go there. I'd probably end up dying because I'll catch one of those superbugs in a weakened state already, which will just ravage you. And as I said, like they're not going to say this because this is a problem that's been in the U.S. for a long time, and it's in numerous hospitals, but they won't release that data information to actually reveals the amount of people that die from these diseases, because then it's going to limit the amount of people who want to go to the hospital. Like if you know Presbyterian had a high rate of the people dying of superbugs, you're not going to want to go there. And so these hospitals don't, they don't disclose that information. And so you see these rapid deaths of people from COVID in these hospitals. They're contracting those superbugs and they're dying from that. But what they'll say is just it's COVID related. They died
right.
from COVID related. They won't exactly say what killed the person. They'll just say it's COVID related. So COVID just enabled these other viruses to get in there and just ravage these people.
Well, I'm watching what's going on now with this race to discover a virus to counteract coronavirus, and all of these various corporations, medical corporations, GlaxoSmithKline, and a bunch of others. They're all racing to the French people, the American people, and and then of course any drug that's going to be used, Captain, has to be approved by the Federal Drug Administration.
Yes.
But I'm also watching now under the Trump administration the requirements for testing and making sure that a drug is safe has been lessened. First of all, I want to ask you, how safe is the drug industry in the first place? I mean, I don't think people are going to put killer drugs out on the street.
No, absolutely, and that, because obviously that's going to hurt their profitability. But so this is the way, because I've worked on a particular product that specialized in this field of combating like viruses and things. And so what happens is that they're racing to try to, because this is new, so they're throwing everything at it to try to see what sticks, basically. That's basically what happened, and they're throwing everything at the wall to see what sticks. And them rushing to, like, put a vaccine on the market, it normally takes about over 10 years for a vaccine to actually go through its trials to see if it actually works, because you got to think, because the thing they're monitoring during that 10-year period is the side effects. Because as I mentioned earlier, no two people are alike. So you may respond to something different from another person. And so you have to test these vaccinations on different ethnic cultures, different age groups and everything. And that takes a long time to do. And also, not only does it take a long time to do, but it takes billions of dollars to do. And what has happened is that a lot of companies have pulled out of the market of making vaccines because, as I mentioned earlier, you remember I said how viruses, they evolve and get stronger. So imagine as a company, you invest billions of dollars, 10 years into a vaccine, for when you put it on the market, the virus is then going to, repel it in, say, like 3 to 5 years. And so now you got to go through that whole process all over again. So as you can imagine, from a business standpoint, it's not a good investment. But now with things like this COVID, this is sort of like a business opportunity, if you will. Strike while the iron is hot.
I mean, that's what's so frightening, Captain Williams, that people see this as a mega money-making opportunity. And
it is.
I think the global populace ought to be very, very suspicious of any drug.
They should be.
That they can say by January of next year, June, that it will be ineffective. I wouldn't take it. I think you might. I wouldn't. I would take my chances. And the other thing you pointed out, the superbugs in the hospitals, you're absolutely right about that. Listen, I'm going to have to wrap this up. How's your wife doing? Is she up and about now?
Oh, yeah, she's doing great. We're both doing great. And, as Elder Smith mentioned, we thank everyone for their prayers. And, I will admit, when I had those chest pains and stuff, I did think like, oh man, is this my time? I hope I have everything set in place. And I'll let you know, from a financial standpoint, I have everything, my wife's name, I have the church's name. So if anything happens, everything is going to my wife and the church. But the thought did cross my mind, because especially when I had those pains, I never felt anything like that in my life before.
I know that's right. Y'all got a big day coming up next month, less than a month from now. So, but the Lord has preserved you. He's going to keep you and your wife around for a very, very long time, for the next 1,000 years. So you got to get used to living and not of dying. Oh. Captain Memphis, it's so good to talk to you today. I'm glad to hear your voice. The last time you were in church, you sat with me at the pulpit and said to me, Pastor, my company has scheduled me to attend a major conference in Texas. And,
that's right.
And I don't know if I'm going to go. That's the last time you and I talked. That was going back a couple of months ago now. And I'm glad you made the decision not to go. We need you and we need your wife around for a very long time. It's so good to hear your voice. Can't wait till we can get back together again, but I'm looking forward to the big celebration coming up very shortly. Got to go, Captain. Thank you so very much for sharing with us today. God bless you.
Thank you. Peace.
Peace. This is a bit of a news blog we do, looking at spiritual wickedness in high places for the most part, making some observations about it and giving people a biblical foundation to the way of interpreting, rather than have Sean Hannity or Laura Ingraham or Janine Pirro or Anderson Cooper or Rachel Maddow or Don Lemon, Rush Limbaugh interpret what's going on in the world. You come to me and I'll tell you based on what the Word of God says. They'll just give you their worldly, sinful view. But the Manning Report will tell you what God has said, whether to say yea or nay, whether to go or to stay. You'll be led by the word of Almighty God. Come to the Manning Report on a daily basis to interpret the spiritual wickedness in high places, because there's plenty of it that's going on. And so I'm the Lord's servant, James David Righteous Rebel Manning, and I'm here to serve you with news and information.